One of the 8 apes in this video shares 98.7% of its DNA with you. And no, that's not the wild part. The wild part is what the other 1.3% is responsible for, and we'll get to that. But first, the ape that will genuinely make you question whether you've been living right. Stay for the last one. It earned its spot. Let's start with the bonobo, because nobody talks about bonobos enough, and that is genuinely a crime. On the surface, they look like a slimmer, slightly more put-together chimpanzee. But here's the thing. Bonobos have built an entire society around conflict resolution through physical affection. Not metaphorically, literally. Stressed? Affection. Argument over food? Affection. Awkward social tension? You already know. Scientists studying them describe their social structure as one of the most peaceful among all primates. And it tracks, because when your solution to every problem is connection, you don't really build up resentment the same way. They're matriarchal, by the way. The females run it, which honestly explains a lot about why it works. Then there's the chimpanzee. And before you say, I already know about chimps, you probably don't know this part. Chimpanzees wage war. Coordinated, strategic, territorial war with coalitions, ambushes, and long-term grudges. Researchers at Gombe documented a 4-year conflict where one chimp group systematically eliminated another, territory by territory. They remember enemies, they hold grudges across years, and they teach their kids. Do you know that person in your friend group who never forgets a single slight from 2019 and has been quietly building leverage ever since? That's a chimp. Highly intelligent, politically calculating, and absolutely not to be underestimated because they look friendly in old TV clips. Which brings us to the Western gorilla. And here's where the energy shifts completely. The Western gorilla is the largest living primate on Earth, and it is, by almost every behavioral metric, a gentle giant. A fully grown silverback can bench press the equivalent of a small car. He also eats mostly fruit and leaves and spends a significant portion of his day doing absolutely nothing. That's the life. The silverback's job is basically be enormous, be calm, break up the occasional fight, repeat. They communicate in low rumbles and chest beats, not because they're aggressive, but because if you're that big, you don't need to be loud to make a point. This is the person who never raises their voice, and somehow that's more intimidating than anyone who does. But if you thought that was a lot, meet the Eastern gorilla, which is where things get genuinely heavy. Eastern gorillas are the rarest great ape on the planet. The Growers subspecies has fewer than 4,000 individuals left in the wild. The mountain gorilla, the one you've seen in documentaries, has recovered slightly from near extinction, but still sits at around 1,000. These animals are bigger than their Western cousins, darker in coloring, and live in some of the most politically unstable terrain on Earth. They're not endangered because of anything dramatic. It's habitat, it's conflict zones, it's slow, unglamorous attrition. Drop a comment if you knew there were actually 2 separate gorilla species. Most people don't. Meanwhile, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the Bornean orangutan. If the gorilla is the strong, silent type, the Bornean orangutan is the introvert who has genuinely figured out how to need almost no one. They are the most solitary of all the great apes. Adult males often live completely alone for years. They don't form troops, they don't build alliances, they have a personal bubble the size of a rainforest and they enforce it. They're also extraordinarily intelligent. They've been documented making and using tools, building elaborate sleeping nests every single night, and planning travel routes based on memory of where fruit trees are across a massive territory. This is the person who moves to a new city, builds a whole life independently, and checks in with family once a month. And somehow it gets weirder. The Sumatran orangutan, which looks almost identical to the Bornean, but is actually a separate species and has been for about 674,000 years. The split happened long before humans ever existed. The Sumatran version is slightly smaller, has a longer face, and is found only on one island. They're also critically endangered, fewer than 14,000 left. Here's the thing that puts it in perspective. They reproduce slower than almost any other mammal their size. A female might raise 4 or 5 offspring in her entire lifetime, so every single individual lost is genuinely hard to replace at the population level. If this video is making you look at primates completely differently, you already know what to do. Then there's the gibbon, which is technically not a great ape, but is absolutely an ape. Gibbons are the acrobats of the primate world. They brachiate, swing arm over arm, faster than you can sprint, through dense jungle with perfect accuracy. They've been clocked moving through trees at over 35 miles per hour, which means your neighborhood speed limit would not save you if a gibbon was actually in a hurry. They're also one of the few primates that pair bond. They mate for life, more or less, and they sing together every morning. Duets, loud ones that carry for miles through the forest. It functions as territorial marking, but also genuinely as pair bonding. And then there's the one that was always going to be last, the human. Hear me out. Humans are taxonomically great apes, hominidae family, not related to apes, apes. We sometimes act like we're a separate category, a different tier, observers rather than participants, but we share a common ancestor with chimpanzees that walked the earth just 6 million years ago. In geological time, that's nothing. 6 million years ago, our ancestors and chimp ancestors were the same creature, making the same choices in the same forests. What diverged wasn't intelligence alone, it was cooperation at scale. Humans can coordinate with strangers, millions of them. No other ape does that. The chimpanzee can outsmart you one-on-one. The gorilla can outlift you by a factor of 10. The bonobo has a better social life. But the reason you're watching this on a device made by thousands of people across dozens of countries is that one weird branch of ape figured out how to trust people it had never met. That's the 1.3%. Not intelligence, scale. We started by asking what that difference was. Turns out it wasn't a big one. It just had a very long time to compound.